Hello, hello, and good morning to everyone on my time zone. Good afternoon if you're ahead of us, and what are you doing up at this time in the morning if you're behind us? Let's do some flying. So we've got this amazing level up 737-800, which we're going to fly today. It's pretty gorgeous, to be honest. They've done a good job with this model. We're sat here at Teesside, and it looks like my satellite imagery hasn't loaded in, so let me just show you the difference. So we've got this fairly generic, dusty looking scenery here. Let me just quickly make sure we've got auto ortho running. And then if I go to reload the scenery, gorgeous new loading screen now for XPlane 12.3 maybe. Now this may take a little while just because it's going to download satellite imagery for the surrounding area. So we're sat at Teesside. I mean, right now we're watching a loading screen, but we're sat at Teesside. And in a moment, you're going to see real satellite imagery from around Teesside. Now that doesn't matter so much when we're flying airliners, flying IFR, instrument flight rule. You can see here that generic dusty scenery has now been replaced with actual satellite imagery. Granted, it's not as good as the AI-powered one that you get with Microsoft Flight Simulator, but when you're doing VFR, visual flight rule flying, like what I do in my little Cessna or my Aquila, it's good enough for visual reference points. So this looks a lot better, a lot more realistic. Let's jump into the aircraft and get acquainted with it. So 737-800, we have what looks like the blue sky interior, so you get the fancy colours going down the full length of the aircraft. Let's get this switched on, and then I think today we're going to head down to Portugal. So we're going to plug in the GPU, the ground power unit. We're going to plug in the air start unit as well. We've got chocks in, and we don't need the air stairs extended. But I'll just show you what you can do. So everything's opening now. You can see the hatches are opening. I probably should get ground, what's it, GSX, ground support X or something. You see the cargo doors are open. Feels pretty realistic. Looks pretty realistic. But it's very loud, so we'll just shut these doors. Now then, we need to get our aircraft all set up for our flight. So let's switch across. Just doing a little bit of on-the-fly editing here. So let's bring up that right. There we go. So we are now in SimBrief. Let me just resize this a touch. Just so you can see it better. There we go. So this is dispatch.simbrief.com. Completely free. You'll know me by now. I don't like to pay for things unless they're exceptional, like the Tolis A330-900, which I crash landed in the last video. Go watch it. So today we're going to do a new flight. We are Tomjet for Romeo Golf, just because I like the sound of it. We're going to leave EGNV, which is Teesside, and if I click on the little weather symbol at the top there, you can see that we get EGNV, also known as MME, because it used to be, I don't know what it used to be actually, I don't know why it's MME. So Teesside Airport, sorry, it used to be Durham Tees Valley Airport, but that's still not MME, but that's just where we are. Elevation is 120 feet. Weather category VFR, which basically means it's clear. METAR ceiling, so that's your weather report. Ceiling is above 10,000 feet. And we have 9.6 kilometers of visibility, 6 statute miles. Let's go through this METAR in a bit more detail, as that works. Yep. So the METAR for EGNV on the 18th day of September, last measured at 0820 Zulu or 0920 local time. The wind is from 230, which is actually straight down the middle of the runway, so that's good for us. So we'll be using runway 23 today. Quite strong, 15 knots. 9 meters of visibility, so 10 kilometers plus, kind of all it goes up to, so pretty clear. Few clouds at 2,400 feet. The temperature outside is 16 degrees Celsius, pretty warm. And the dew point is 10 degrees. So if you cooled the air down to 10 degrees, it would condense into clouds. Pressure setting today is going to be QNH 1011 around the airfield, and then we'll switch to standard, which is 1013, so not a huge difference once we get above the transition altitude. The TAF, which is the temporary forecast, is wind is going to stay roughly the same. 40% probability, stronger winds later on. So between 9 AM and 6 PM, it looks like the wind is going to increase with gusts of 26 knots. Little bit of rain later on, broken clouds. Nothing too concerning. Let's look at the NOTAMs. T-side, maybe service may be limited, reduced low-level coverage, radar in use. I think we're good. Okay, I'm going to ignore all that because I can't be bothered to read it. We're going to go to Faro, which, if I can remember my... Is it LPFO for Faro? No. What's Faro again? Oh, I used to know these all off the top of my head, but they've just completely gone. LPFR rings a bell. Gigo Coutinho? Is that the right one? I have no idea. Let me just do a quick Google. I'm sure LPFR is the right one. Faro International Airport, FAO, that's the one. Right, LPFR, my brain is not completely turned into cabbage. So let's look at the METAR here. So this is what we're going to be landing in. LPFR, 18th day of the month, from 9 o'clock UK time. Winds will be 100, so that we'll be landing on runway, I believe they've got runway, a runway pointing directly to the west and obviously directly to the east because it's the same bit of tarmac. So we'll be landing in a easterly direction, runway 09. I think it's 0927, I think it is, but we'll find out when we get closer. And it's a 9-knot wind, so that's fine. Even as a direct crosswind, we can land in a 9-knot crosswind. I've landed in more than that in the Cessna, full crosswind, so that's fine. CAVOC, ceiling and visibility okay, or CAV okay. 25 degrees, so a bit warmer than T-side, and a dew point of 20. Pressure setting a bit higher than T-side as well. QNH will be 1019. All nice. Good day to fly. Alternate today. Ooh, let's have a look. Let's go to... In fact, let's just keep it at auto and just see what it comes back with. I'll probably, if the weather suddenly turns bad, which it won't, probably fly Lisbon, which is... can't remember Lisbon. Let's keep it as auto, and then we'll see what it comes up with. I'm going to choose the aircraft, which is the Boeing 737-800. So pretty straight route all the way down. It's set Lisbon LPPT is our alternate anyhow. A nice little DME arc there. So there will be some sort of radio beacon in Lisbon. And what we have to do is we have to get to this point at the bottom right, and then we have to fly this route, maintaining a constant distance from that radio beacon, known as a DME arc, distance measuring equipment arc. So if you flew in a straight line like this, then you would get further away from the beacon, obviously. You've got to maintain that distance, and that's called the DME arc. Quite common just for keeping you away from noise sensitive areas, those sorts of things. Probably some rich people live in this little peninsula here. So we've got 737. Do we have? No, these are all Microsoft Flight Simulators. Call sign is going to be Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf. I like the Lido flight plan layout. We're going to use pounds, not kilos. I like my detailed flight maps, and it's going to be a block time of 320. That's the route. If I zoom out, we'll get some other options as well, but to be honest, that looks pretty direct, so let's just keep that. We'll be coming in on a Genro arrival. Do I want to try fiddling around with that? I don't really know. That looks like a good route to me. So if we go up to the top here, hit generate flight, that's going to go off, pull in all the information that's required to start this flight. There we go. So initial altitude 35,000 feet, cost index of 69, route distance is just over 1100 nautical miles. Wind component, so the average wind is going to be from 225, so we're going to have a headwind for the majority of it. So the wind component means it's going to be minus, what's that, 38 minutes? Or, oh no, 38 knots, right. So the wind component will be minus 38 knots over the averaged out over the full route. ISA deviation, so it's actually warmer than International Standards Atmosphere, ISA, by 3 degrees. I've got the AirX cycle of 2509, I think. Definitely got 2508, but we'll have to have a look. And what I do at this point is I go down to flight plan downloads. So I'll download the flight plan in a moment. Where's the PDF? There it is. So if I click on PDF, you can see here we've got our flight plan. Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf, from Teesside to Faro, cost index of 69, and this is all I need basically. Block fuel, that's important, so we'll take 25 tons of fuel in imperial tons, and we should be good to go. Right, let's jump back into the aircraft. I'm just going to download these flight plans just while you're watching that screen. So into output and FMS plans. And then I'm going to pre-file in the network. I'm just doing this just in case it asks me to log in, so you can see you don't see my password. Logging in, and then if I bring this back up again, so you can see what this has done is it's pulled across all of the information from the flight plan. So we've got our call sign, the flight rules, aircraft type, weight category, it's all in here. It's also pulled across the route, which is nice. And then what we can do is go down to file flight plan at the top, which you can't quite see. It says flight plan filed, so we are good to go. Let's open up the PDF. Then we can go flying. So back in the aircraft, we are not on XPilot. So we'll bring up XPilot. Let's get logged in. So Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf 737-800. I'm just going to jump outside and see if anybody else is online. Nope, I've got the airport entirely to ourselves, which is nice. Look at those clouds drifting along. Looks fantastic. Oh, Scottish Centre's online. Lewis is online. Anybody else? No. So we're too far south to be part of the coverage area. Oh, we've got south approach for Manchester. So if I double click on that, Manchester radar. Anybody else? No. Okay, so I'm just going to hide that for now. Look at that. It's absolutely stunning. Gotta say, streaming does kill the frame rate on this, but it's not too bad. We can make do. So if I just press this noisy button, click, back inside. So let's get the aircraft set up based on our flight plan. So GPU is connected. Let's turn on, I'll just slide across, give you a better view. Go through what we're going to do. So ground power is available, so we're going to turn that on. You can hear it all firing up. Going to arm and shield the emergency exit lights. I'm going to slide up to the top and start getting the inertial reference system, the IRS, aligned. So this is like a gyroscope that will give us inertial guidance, so the aircraft knows where it is. Your damper is currently off because the IRSs haven't aligned, or the gyros haven't fully spun up yet. Leave these all as they are. Fuel temperature is the same as the outside temperature as you would expect. Let me just have a look. So we're going to need to put 25 tons of fuel into this, and we need to make sure that we are on general config, I think, so we need to be in pounds. That's very important. And then what I like to do is just save that for next time. Quick save all configs. Go into ground services. Is it ground services? No, fuel and weight. I think we need to call the fuel truck first. And then what we'll do is we'll go in here, type in £25,000 of fuel. Just looking at our spreadsheet, flight plan. Total payload weight is 27.6 tons. So if I just go down here, 27,600 pounds of payload. That will give us a mixture of cargo and male, female, and children. It will distribute passengers accordingly throughout the cabin. That's all done. Ooh, what's airside services? Not active. Nice. Okay, so we have done our fuel weight and balance. Ground services are on. I've got better pushback. We don't need that right now. We need to load our flight plan, but everything's off. So ground power is on. Why don't I have screens? Why don't I have screens? Ah, because the batteries are off. So let's shield that. Just going to go back to our normal screen here. So the backup screens are on. Do I need to put... Those won't work because of the engine generators. So I need to start the APU before I get screens. Seems counterintuitive because I've got ground power. Something somewhere. Oh, there we go. So I don't need to turn on the APU for the screens. I just need to turn the battery on. So we've now got our screens. We've now got our flight management system switched on. Nav data is it out of date? Let me have a look. How do I get the enter IRS position? Do this first. So go and pluck that from the GPS. Go back a page. pop it in there, and that should be enough to give us our screens. And you can see the actual navigational performance is just correcting itself based on the GPS that we've given it. So I think actual navigation performance should go to 0 at this point, because we haven't moved from the location we've just given it. So for we'll see. So we need to have required navigational performance of within 1 mile, 1 nautical mile, and our actual navigational performances should be dropping down to 0. So we've got primary flight display. Let's go back up to no, we were going to put the flight plan in, weren't we? So if I go to let's do these first. So gross weight is 147.6 tons. The reserve fuel today is, just looking on my final reserve, 2.3 tons. Look at my PDF. Cost index today is 69. Steady on. Cruise altitude today is going to be flight level 350. We'll execute that, and that will tell the computer basically how heavy we are and what the performance is going to be. N1 limit, we've got a decent sized runway here today, so we're going to derate the takeoff to a £24,000 thrust, and it's automatically selected to climb 1 based on our derate as well. We're going to use 10 degrees of flaps, and our CG is going to be 18.6, which means we need a trim of, why is that so high? Stabilizer trim is locked at 0. And my, oh, there we go. Electric trim is now working. So 5.5 on the trim setting. Center of gravity is 18.6%, which means we're a bit nose heavy, and our takeoff speeds are going to be V1. So when we get to 138 knots, that's the last opportunity we have to abort the takeoff. But because of the runway length, as soon as we get to that, we'll be ready to take off anyhow. So all the way up to rotation speed, we'll be able to stop safely on the runway. V2, which is engine out, so single engine, best rate of climb speed is 146. Now, because we've got a bit of a headwind, what was it, 146? I saw this once on a video. The ITVV Virgin 19 from Heathrow to San Francisco video, the captain put the V2 plus 10 speed into the speed window, and that allowed him to have a visual indication of what the best climb out rate plus a margin for error would be for the aircraft. So I like that, and I will continue to do that. I like to see the backlights. It just makes it easier to read for me. Just makes things a bit more readable, and also down here as well, so you can see the radio numbers aren't particularly readable here. So if I turn on the brightness, you can see that those now light up. Transponder is currently in standby, which is what we want. That all looks good. Okay, so we've got IRSs are aligned. We should have our flight plan picked up. We've got our takeoff speeds. Just trying to get comfortable where my rudder pedals are. That all looks good. Let's just look at the flight plan. I don't think I've imported that just yet, have I? Route. I've been doing a lot of Airbus flying, so I was looking for the flight plan option, and that's not there. So we want EGNV, going to LP, FR, and it's flight plan 01. So put that in the company route. That gives us the route. We've got some. Oh dear, I've put the wrong Have I? No. I thought that was... I put the wrong departure runway in. So Gasco. Do we have a Gasco departure? No, we don't. No SIDS whatsoever. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our route. We will remove the discontinuity on this side, apparently. Do we do it in legs? Delete. Nope. Why can't I pull that to the top? Casco to the top. There we go. Activate the flight plan. Have a quick look in plan mode. Zoom out a bit. So we're here. So yeah, Gasco makes sense. So we're going to maintain runway heading to Gasco, to Ribble, and then we will start heading south. That all makes perfect sense. Let's get our pressure settings plugged in. So it was 1009. Was it? Or 1011? What we can do is if I bring up the XPilot window again, type in .wx egnv, give us an up-to-date view 1011 hectopascals. Just make sure it's the same on both sides, otherwise we'll get an altitude disagree. I'll just show you what that looks like. So if the first officer has got a very different pressure setting, does that show when we're on the ground? Yes, it does. You see it there, altitude disagree. That basically means that the pressure settings are different on both sides, which they shouldn't be. So let me just dive across here and correct this. You can also see the altitude disagree on the co-pilot side. Put this back into map mode. Zoom in a bit just so we can see with high precision after takeoff. We need to maintain the magenta line. And is that everything? Is that everything? Now normally you'd be doing checklists, and there are checklists and procedures in here. So pre-flight, I'm not going to do all that. Blah 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 blah. Before start checklist, we can do that. Flight deck door is wide open, so we can shut that. Sorry peeps, and then that should be locked. CDU display set. Don't know what that means. N1 bugs. Did we set? Yep, we've set a derated N1. Indicated airspeed bugs are all set as well, so that's our V speeds. MCP mode control panel, also model context protocol, which is an AI term. So this is all set up, I believe. Initial altitude 3000. We don't have an instrument departure, so I'm just going to ramp that straight up to 35,000 feet, or flight level 350 on a standard pressure setting. Initial heading, let's have a look at the initial heading, 227. So let's just get a visual indication on the primary flight display. There you go, heading indicated now along there, but we also have the magenta line. Let's turn on the flight display, the flight directors, which will give us vertical and lateral guidance after takeoff. TCAS is currently off. TCAS is off, but it will come on once we turn on the transponder. So we'll go to turn that on. TCAS is off. Why is TCAS off? Okay, because it's, yeah, if we turn that onto a proper thing, then we can turn it on, but we'll leave that off for now. So we'll pop it in standby until we're just going onto the runway. We've got fuel, flight controls. What I like to do at this point is just hop outside, see the heat haze from the APU. So let's just see if we've got flight controls. We don't really have hydraulics enabled at this point, so nothing's going to work. So we'll do that after takeoff, after pushback. See if there's anybody around that we may be pushing back into the path of. Nope. So we'll do a radio call and we will push back. Turn this off for now. So if I go to, let me just hide XPilot for a moment. Go to better pushback, start push back.
Ground to cockpit. Please show me where you want to go.
Show me where you want to go. Right, so we want to go, push all the way back to here. And then we try and get lined up with the taxiway line to there.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Tow is driving up. What have I forgotten? Probably lots of things because I'm not using a checklist, which is a terrible, terrible habit to get into. So 8:56 UTC. What we can do is watch the tug pulling up. Oh, there it is. Oh, we've got the ground carts and everything still plugged in, so let's sort that out. Do we have... We do have the APU on, so let's switch across to that. We can turn off ground power. Do we have APU bleed?
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed, ready to connect.
Okay, connect away. And then what we can do is disconnect the GPU, disconnect the air start unit. So we are now on internal power. The packs are off because we'll need that bleed air in a moment for starting the engines. And I didn't really complete my scan. So the yaw dampers will work now because the IRSs are working and the gyroscopes are fully functional. We're going to need some... Do we have fuel in the centre tank? Yeah, we've got 7 tons in the centre tank, so we'll need those pumps as well.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted. Release parking brake.
So anti-collision light is on. Put the position light to steady. Seatbelt should now be on. Ground power is off. Standby power. Again, I like the lights on. Turn on the window heat. Not because it's cold outside, but because it makes the windscreen a bit more malleable. If we get hit by a bird or something, that will makes the window less brittle. So we are looking good. So we're ready to push back. So I'm going to turn off the parking brake, which I can do with my foot brakes. And that man should start shouting at us.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
You may start engines. So let's start the left engine first. So what we'll see is N2. So this is basically air getting blown across the turbine, and then in a moment when that gets up to speed, we will switch on the fuel flow. We'll do that there. 24% N2, we'll start to get fuel flow. Oil pressure is increasing, oil temperature is increasing, and we should then start to see exhaust gas temperature increase. And the N1 turbine is also increasing. Now I've often referred to this as being the big disc at the front. I think it's actually a turbine within the it's the low pressure turbine, which I think is attached to the big fan at the front. But it's the same thing, fundamentally. So that's one good start, and we heard the solenoid click to switch that off. So these are held in place by a solenoid, and then we'll go through the same process again. N2 spinning up from the bleed air. Nice to see these shadows as we're turning. And when it gets to 24, just pretty much switch it on at any point, and the engine will only start pulling fuel. There's the fuel flow. Exhaust gas temperature will increase now because we're burning fuel. N1 is turning. Let's just have a quick look outside just to make sure that the tow driver is not putting us somewhere strange. Nope, that's fine. I taxied in there. You can watch the video of me taxiing in on that exact taxiway there. I think it's Charlie. Last flight lesson that I did. So once we've pushed back, we are going to be asked to set the parking brake again. Can you see the tug? Why can't I see the tug? Strange. If I go outside, there he is. Ah, because he's right under the nose. So stop there.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Parking brake is set.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Standing by. Okay, so there's a few things that we need to do once we've been pushed back. We need to set the flaps to 10. And you can now see the flap position indicator moving. Leading edge flaps in transit. It's not French, not les flaps. Leading edge flaps extended. Set the brakes to rejected takeoff. So that's once you've gone beyond 50% power. If you then suddenly close the throttles, it will brake for you. For example, in the event of a rejected takeoff, RTO. Anti-skid's working because the light's not activated, and we will disconnect and show hand signals, which means it's going to talk to us, I think. So a few things that we need to do. We need to turn on some lights. We need to also switch across from the APU to the engine power. That's all done, and then we'll
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the left. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
We'll make sure that we've got air flowing into the cabin. We can turn off the APU bleed. You can hear the fans turning. There goes the tour driver. Better pushback is very good. What you'll see in a moment is that will stop, and then a guy will magically appear with the nose wheel steering bypass pin in his hand, which means that we can do nose wheel steering. All good. I was going to put some lights on, so we need to do our taxi lights. Logo light is on, position light is on. We actually remembered to turn on the anti-collision light this time. 35,000, so the pressure setting the pressure system will automatically monitor and maintain the right pressure setting throughout the flight. What am I forgetting? I really should start getting into the habit of using these checklists, but they're very long-winded. Okay, let's go taxiing to the runway. Oh, I didn't announce my pushback. Sorry, Vatim. But let's do that now. So I'm going to pull up the XPilot. Still nobody around. I'll just make sure I'm on Unicom, which I am, 122.8. Let's do a quick radio call. Teesside Airport traffic, Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf, just pushed back from stand 4, taxiing to holding point for runway 23, Teesside. Okay, just going to move my flight yoke, which will be noisy, so I'll just go on mute for a moment. That was very loud. Okay, let's go to the runway. So we're going to turn off the parking brake, which I can do by pushing down the nose wheel. The toe brakes. And then the aircraft will probably start creeping forward a little bit just on idle power. This shows you how little thrust you need. I've just realised I need to change one of the settings. So hardware, I'm going to set the nose wheel axis to yaw. And that means that we can control the nose wheel with the nose wheel tiller, just with the rudder pedals. So that'll give us a bit more turning ability. So I'm just going to add a little bit of power, just to get us moving properly. You can see the N1 speed at the bottom right of your screen. 27.5% N1. That's more than enough to move, especially around the terminal area where it gets a bit busy. And I'm just going to use the rudder pedals to get us to the runway. Let me just have a quick look. So that's all set up correctly. Just checking the sound settings on XPilot. Ladies and gentlemen from the cockpit, welcome aboard this TUI flight to Faro. We know you have options for flying. We thank you for flying with us today. Enjoy your flight. Stay there, van. Stop creeping forward. Not even. Oh, that would have been a disaster. You see the news reports already, can't you? Good. So you can see the tower coming up on the. A little bit fast here. There's the tower. Spoken to them before. When you're a student pilot, one of the scariest things in the world is talking on the radio for the first time to real air traffic controllers. My experience is they're all fantastic. Very, very accommodating. And very patient with silly students. So this is normally where the Draken Falcons fly. So Draken is a company owned by Jared, what's his last name? Is it Isaacman? Jared Isaacman? The guy who flew the first privately commanded space flight on SpaceX. He also did the first private spacewalk. Very, very interesting guy. But yeah, Draken is, they've got a base at Teesside. Very narrow taxiways, these. I had a taxi down here on my last flying lesson as well, which is quite cool. Yeah, so there's Alpha 2. We've already cleared ourselves to the last holding point, which I'm guessing is going to be Alpha 1. And you can tell that this is the last one because it's got the runway 23 listed on it. So I'm just going to slow down just a bit, just make sure I've done everything I need to do. So we've got flaps. We need to put runway turn off. We need to put the landing lights on. We need to turn on the strobe lights.
Hey, the cabin is secured. Have a good flight.
We've got cabin secured from the flight attendants. This is all looking pretty good, so we're ready to take off. Let's just make sure there's nothing on approach, and then we'll do a radio call. Teesside Airport traffic, Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf at holding point Alpha 1, lining up, taking off runway 23, correction, Teesside. So let's go flying. So I'm going to arm LNAV and VNAV, but they're not coming on. I'm going to arm the auto throttle. We'll take off and then we'll activate VNAV and LNAV. Just see the windsock over here to the left. So the wind is going straight down the runway. Helps if I'm Looking straight in the cockpit as well. Okay, so we are going to advance the throttles to around about 40, make sure that they're both coming up, the N1s are both coming up together. EGT's looking good. We're then going to hit N1. We'll watch those thrust rise. Thrust should be set at 94.1, thrust set 94.2 now for some reason.
80 knots.
80 knots. Waiting for V1 rotate. No negative indications.
V1 rotate. Positive rate.
Positive rate. Gear up.
Gear up. 400.
400. So at this point, if we want, we can engage the autopilot. Oh,
1000.
let's engage the autopilot just because I've got a few things I need to do. So we're climbing now, a bit too steeply. Great visuals. So, so flying on N1, that'll just track the direction. I need to turn on the turn on TCAS. That is now flying us, so we've still got flaps out, which is fine. Don't need the RTO auto brakes. Let's just zoom out. Climbing at 35,000 feet. Flaps are still out, so we'll start bringing the flaps up in a moment. Flaps 2. Flaps 1. Flaps up. So we've got a clean wing, 3,800 feet on the QNH, and we'll be flying out to Gasco, and then Rybel, and then we'll be turning left at Rybel. Slight left, in fact, at Gasco. So you can hear the trim wheel spinning. That's the autopilot doing that. Just maintaining pitch with trim. Through a bit of a cloud layer, so it's getting a bit rocky. There's T-side, looking a bit gorgeous. There's the A1, I think, there. Bit of a hazy day. And you can see that our pressure setting is now showing in yellow because we've gone through the transition altitude, and we should now be flying on standard pressure. So we'll just click STD in the middle of there, it goes to standard, and the same for Copilot. And there we go, we are flying. We hop outside. Looking pretty nice. Wowzers. This is getting pretty nice visually. So, just waiting for our left turn at Rybel. Still not at Gasco yet. Got another what's that, 30 miles to go to Rybel. That is pretty spectacular. Love it. As real as it gets. Okay, let's try and be good. Let's do an after takeoff checklist. Checklist and procedures. Takeoff. So we've done all that. After clear for takeoff. So landing gear is up. Roll mode. Select or verify. What's roll mode? We're in LNAV. That's fine. We're also above 10,000 feet, so we can turn off some of these lights now. Turn off the landing lights above 10,000 feet. Turn off the taxi lights, which is on the nose wheel, so that's be burning a hole in the bottom of the nose wheel doors. We can now release the passengers. Logo light can come off. Anti-collision light needs to stay on. We can turn off those as well. We've got differential pressure, so the pressure system is working well. It's looking good. Looking good for getting these people to Faro for their holiday. So didn't use toga. Rotate up to 15 degrees. Flaps retracted. After slaps, so VNAV mode is enabled, autopilot was enabled, engine start switches. So we're not going through any heavy precipitation, so they're just in off. If we were going through rain, you could set them to continuous ignition, so it basically minimises the risk of a flame out, but that's fine. Auto brake is off, landing gear lever currently set to up. Put it to off. That's all done. Is there another? So climb and cruise. Landing lights have just been switched off. Passenger lights have been switched off. We've changed our altimeter to standard. Done the cross check. Before top of descent, modify route for arrival. Okay, so we're not doing that just yet. This is looking really nice. Ooh, some interesting clouds up ahead. Looks bumpy. Oh, so on the last video I did, I talked about how the aircraft auto-tunes VOR stations in the Airbus. I'm not sure if the Boeing does, to be honest. Let's find out. So it's currently tuned into DAP, and the reason I say that is because the nav is here and it's manually controllable, whereas on the Airbus it's hidden away in a menu. It's all just done through the FMCU. Nice little clouds. So as you're going through the clouds, you should see a little bit of movement on the primary flight display. Nope. Okay. It is a very, very nice day to fly. Let's just see if we've got any controllers that may affect us. Nothing at the moment. I will show you. If you go to map.vatsim.net, and I'll show you that. Here we go. So if we just zoom out from where we crash landed last time, so there's EGNV. It's already selected Tomjet for Romeo Golf. Really? Have we gone all that way already? Already on the west coast? I'm just turning. So we're flying down past Manchester. You can see Manchester radar is there, but if it's an approach controller, they won't be controlling above 24,000 feet, 24,500 feet, so that's shouldn't affect us because we're already at 22,000 feet. And then we're going to fly down here, skirting the border between England and Wales. Down here, over, or not far away from Lyme Regis, where they do the best fish and chips in the world. Over the channel, over, what airport's that? LERB. Sorry, LFRB. Don't know. Let me just click back on us. So we're going to go over the Bay of Biscay, into northern Portugal, straight down the middle, and then into Faro, where there's already a Jet 2 just landed from East Midlands. Maybe we'll see them on the way back, but we're going to land. Okay, yeah, so it's not left, it's not west and east, it's slightly pointed towards the northwest, so we'll be landing on runway 10, and then we can probably land and taxi into, what do you fancy, at the terminal or a remote gate? Let's do 321 because that'll be easy to remember, and then we're going to fly back home, back to Teesside. So if I go to focus, track, that'll track us all the way down. Let's get rid of that for now. So we can now zoom out a little bit on the navigation display on the ND. See what traffic we've got. We've got something, it looks like it's maintaining 27,000 feet because we're about to intercept it at 27,000 feet. And it doesn't look like it's climbing or descending because it would have an arrow next to it. So it's about 50 miles away. We've got another aircraft descending. You can see the arrow next to it. So let's have a look at the time. So it's 9:24 UTC. Go to the progress page. We should be at LPFR at 11:42. So 2 hours and just under, well, 2 hours 18 minutes. Let's have a look at the arrival. So our arrival was going to be, just looking at the last waypoint, Genro. So we'll be doing a Genro, ILS Zulu for runway 10. We're going to do a no option for ILS. Interesting, so it's only going to allow me to land on runway 28 with that arrival. Okay, we'll figure that out later on. Got nothing to execute. Wow, look at the lakes down there. Must be the Lake District. Must be. If we've gone across to the west coast. Let's put a fix in. So let's put EGCC, which is Manchester Airport. You can see the fix is showing up here to the left of us. So it's 14.8 miles, and we are on a heading, or on a bearing, sorry, of 280, so almost due west. So if I slide to the left, do a cha-cha slide, and then look down, that's not the Lake District, it's Manchester. You see there's the river that goes to Manchester, whatever that's called. Somewhere down here we should maybe be able to see Manchester Airport. Should just be out the window here.
Thousand to go.
1,000 feet to go. Some nice trails on those clouds. Can anyone see it? Could be behind the clouds. Nope. Didn't see it. Let's put something else in. So rather than Manchester, let's put EGLL, Heathrow. So we are 135 miles from Heathrow. We are on a bearing of 322. Some traffic off to the left hand side, 1,000 feet above. Somewhere out there. Too far away to see. Climbing. Okay, so just a few things about the primary flight display. So we're currently set to FMC speed. That's not right. Maybe I'm just used to the Airbus ways of doing things. So FMC speed, flight management computer speed. Yeah, so managed speed is .79, so we're maintaining that pretty nicely. We're in LNAV, lateral navigation mode, so it's basically following the magenta line for the lateral navigation. You can see our actual navigation performance is 0.04 of a nautical mile, which is pretty good. Just banking slightly to the left. And we're in VNAV path, so it's following the vertical profile. So the climb, the cruise, and then the descent at the moment, and we've basically set the cleared altitude as 35,000 feet. That's where we are. CMD means that we're in autopilot mode, so we've turned on the autopilot, which is in command at the moment. We've got LNAV, VNAV active. Quickly talk about the speed display. So the .79 is the commanded speed, and this is being commanded by the flight management computer. The actual speed is in white, so we're actually flying at .794, slightly higher, but you'll see the engine power will be modulating, going up and down, just trying to maintain .79. So there we go, it's corrected itself now. We've got the standard artificial horizon in the middle. Brown is the ground, blue is the sky. Pink cross is the flight director that we turned on before, so you should turn it off. You just get your normal flight display, primary flight display. Turn it back on, and it gives you your lateral and vertical guidance. Top right 1.0, this is our angle of attack. So it's just showing the angle of attack is, I guess, slightly nose up. Green is ideal, I guess, but yeah. There's no red marks apart from this one up here, so it all looks good. If you basically go beyond these if you go beyond the flight envelope, then the aircraft will stall. Let's see what else. So we've got the almost like the ILS display, but you can see the navigation display is just showing us being slightly to the left, and we're just going to correct ever so slightly back onto the magenta line. We've got vertical deviation indicators here, which are all looking fine. We are descending slightly, seeing a vertical speed indicator just gently shifting up and down as we ride the air outside. This is just basically updrafts and downdrafts that the aircraft is experiencing. Before we get to the heading display, we'll talk about altitude. So we're currently flying at flight level 350, also known as 35,000 feet, but on a standard pressure setting. You see it's just banking to maintain the route. Heading display, so we've got the nose of the aircraft right now is pointed at 190, but the track across the ground is actually 183-ish. 182. You can see the track on the display up here. So this is showing us which way the nose is pointing, and we're pointing into a fairly stiff wind of 65 knots coming from the right hand side, which is why our nose needs to be into that wind to maintain the desired track over the surface of the Earth. Because that wind is coming slightly from in front as well, our ground speed is reduced compared to our true airspeed. So we're travelling at 457 knots through the air, but some of that is a headwind, so our ground speed is reduced to 427 knots over the Earth. I think that's probably it for the primary flight display. Let's talk about the nav display. We've talked about the wind, 244 at 60 knots. What else have we got in here? So we've got track display. I think you can change track to... Where can you change track? There is somewhere you can change track to heading, but it is completely escaping me right now how you do that. You can see Heathrow, the fix that I've just put in is off to the left. We've got traffic displayed because we've got traffic turned on here. This is our route in magenta. We've got different waypoints across the Earth that we're tracking between. So track is your track across the ground. Heading is where the nose is pointing. So you can be heading in one direction, but because of the wind, you'd be tracking in a different direction. So we're currently heading towards Alpha Bravo Whiskey India Victor. We'll get there at 0939 Zulu. So 0939 is in 4 minutes. And you'll notice that we use this strange .4. So to make it easy, we just divide a minute into 10. So 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then it'll take over to 9:40 in the morning. And we just use this because the brain calculates decimals easier than 60 minutes or 60 seconds in a minute. So we're slowly getting towards Alpha Bravo Whiskey India Victor, 27 miles to go, and we'll get there at 9:39.4. So dividing a minute into tenths gives you 6 seconds. So 0939.1 will be 6 seconds after 0939. and that looks like it's going to be 09, 39 and 30 seconds. That will change depending on the wind, so the wind is fluctuating, and our estimated time of arrival at the next waypoint will be displayed and fluctuate accordingly. Required navigational performance is 2 nautical miles now at this altitude, but we've got excellent actual navigational performance showing up there. We've got backup instruments here, so these are powered by different inputs. So you've got different pitot tubes giving you pressure inputs for the speed and the altitude. You've got different static ports as well, which will give you your altitude. So if anything gets blocked and stops the primary flight displays and stops the co-pilot displays, we also have a third option here, which is these backup displays. We also have an old style ADF, automatic direction finder, which you can use to tune into VORs and track VOR to VOR if we have to. This is the upper ICAS. Is that the right terminology for Boeing? Pretty sure it is. We have our low pressure turbine speed at the top here, so 86%. We've got a limit of 95, so well within the limits. Barely even stretching the engines at the moment. Current exhaust gas temperature 700 degrees Celsius, quite a lot. You can see the fuel display here. So the centre fuel tank, we burn the centre fuel tank fuel first. Maintain that weight in the wings to counteract the bending moment of the lift from the wings. Later on in the flight, when the centre tank is empty, we'll get a fuel notification up here. So you can see if I just put that into test mode, fuel will flash up, and then what we'll do is we'll come up here and we'll turn off the fuel pumps for the centre fuel tank manually. It happens all automatically in the Airbus. So exhaust gas temperature, low pressure turbine known as the N1. The TAT is the total air temperature, which is the outside air temperature. Do we have the external air temperature showing in here anywhere? So the temperature outside is going to be something like -50. Progress. Can I see? Just somewhere I can see the outside temperature. But the reason why the outside temperature, you can probably see the outside temperature based on the fuel temperature. Fuel temperature, oh no, fuel temperature is still just below 0, but that's fine. It doesn't freeze until you get well below -50. So the reason why the total air temperature is higher than the external air temperature is because of the friction of the aircraft going through the air. So there's actually, the aircraft doesn't experience the full -50 temperature. It's because of friction heating, the aircraft is only really experiencing -25 degrees Celsius. Below we've got the multifunction display. We've got the N2, which is the high pressure turbine at 91%. Fuel flow, we've got basically 5 tons of fuel, imperial tons, going into the engines per hour. So if we've got 5 tons of fuel going in every hour, we've got 16 tons, 17, 18, 19 tons. So let's call it 20. We've basically got 4 hours of endurance in the aircraft right now. Oil pressure is looking good. Oil temperature is looking good. Oil quantities the same. Vibration is 1.4. I don't know if that's, well, I was going to say I don't know if that's good or bad. It's clearly good because we're below the little white symbols up there. This is the engine vibration. I remember once on a flight from, I think we had a family holiday when I was younger, before 9/11, I think we flew to... Orlando with Britannia, or maybe First Choice. I think it was Britannia on a 767, and I got invited up to the cockpit, and the captain talked to me about the vibration. It basically taught me through all these different things, because I said I was a bit of a flight sim nerd, and he said vibration, it was showing something like 1.1, and he said that may sound high. I was like, I didn't really have a reference for it, but he said 1.1 is absolutely fine. Said if you put your car engine on it, the vibration will be completely off the scale, so I'll always remember that. You can set the auto brake at this point if you wanted to, even though we're nowhere near our destination. I was talking about the multifunction display, so you can see it's got a lot of engine parameters, but you can also set it to be system mode, and this will then change it so you can see your hydraulic fluid quantity, hydraulic fluid pressure, brake temperatures just in the main landing gear, so it looks like there's no brakes in the nose gear on the 737. And then you can see the position of all of the flight controls. So you can see the aileron is just gently moving around just a little bit. Ailerons are just going up and down just a touch, so we must be experiencing a little bit of turbulence. The ailerons are just keeping us nice and steady. A little bit of left rudder as well. So all looks good. Elevator is static where it is, and if it needs to move, it'll just be controlled by the stabilizer trim. All good. I'm going to put that back into engine mode, just because that's more useful in the cruise. If I go to CR, that should show any cancelled or recalled errors or anything like that. But it's all looking good. What's that there? Brake pressure. So brake pressure is in the green. What else? Lots and lots of redundancy in here as well. So let's just quickly talk about the display units. What I can do is I can change the navigation display to show a copy of the engine indications. I can move the primary flight display to this screen if this screen was to fail, or I can bring up the multifunction display here as well if I need to. So if any of these screens fail, I can just move the display to another screen. Lower display unit, I can move the upper ICAS down to the lower, or I can display the navigation display there if I want. I could even just swap those around. So I get the multifunction display there and the nav put in the middle. So we'll just put it back to normal. Let's see, what else can I fiddle with? Got V1 bugs here, V-speed bugs. Yeah, not going to play around with them. Let's have a look. What else can we play with? Make sure we're good here. Wonder where we are. Let's open the map. Hit M. So we've just crossed over the I know that's the 7 up there. Is this the 7 estuary, perhaps? So we're now flying over Bristol. Bristol is somewhere over there. There it is. Now flying over Devon and Cornwall. Down to Dunkswell. There's Exeter. Got BHD, which I think is Berry Head. Berryhead VOR, which we can tune in, 112.05. So let's tune in VOR 2, which is on the co-pilot side. 112, I've already forgotten, 05. And then you can see Berryhead is now tuned in on the VOR 2, and you can see there's a green arrow pointing towards it. Not a lot going on up here. Clear skies. And because Berryhead is a VOR, which means it's a VHF omnidirectional range, we can actually change, we can tune it in and also display a particular course. So if we wanted to, let's see, we want to know what exactly east and west is from that beacon, you can see the navigation display is changing, that green line is changing. That gives you an indication of the east and west from Berryhead down there. You can also just turn off the VOR displays, so we can leave it on Berryhead, so we'll leave that on there, but we can turn it off on the captain's display. Lots and lots of buttons to fiddle with. So, let's have a quick look against our estimated fuel burn. So if I bring up try to find the right window. Not giving me the option to show you the screen. Let me just have a play around with this. See if I can trick it into showing you what I want to show you. There we go. Okay. So what we can do is we can do a quick check of the fuel prediction. So we are just about to, we are at SIDHO, SIDHO. SIDHO. So the expected fuel on board at this point should be 18.9. With a fuel burn of 6.1. 18.9, so we should be just shy of 19 tons of fuel on board. Is there... Yes, so there it is. Fuel quantity is currently 19.3, so we're ahead of our fuel plan. We've got a bit extra fuel than we need. So what we could do, if we go to cruise, target speed decimal 793, we could actually speed up a touch. So we could maybe speed up to decimal 80. Decimal 80. So we're now flying on a, we've activated a modified speed. So you can see that's now crept up. Requested speed is decimal 80. You see the actual speed is increasing. Our fuel burn is going to go up as well. You can see the engines powering up a bit more. Decimal 800. That should mean that we get to so fuel at Faro will be 9.5 tons. We've got stacks and stacks of fuel. But don't forget, if I go to the progress page, if we get to LPFR, to Faro, with 9.5 tons of fuel and it's closed, we need the ability to get to our alternate all the way up to Lisbon. I think, is that the channel down there? Looks like water to me. Yep, so we are now feet wet over the channel. Slide over to the co-pilot side, you should still be able to see Berry Head. Down there somewhere. Nope, just see. Lots of reflections of clouds in the sea. Okay, so we are over the channel. Still no air traffic control, which I'm a bit sad about. I don't want air traffic control. I think this is probably a good time for a quick coffee, don't you? Nice coffee break. I'm just going to turn some of these down a bit because I think I can leave it like that for now. Stick a little sign up. Okay, see you in a moment with a coffee in my hand. I'm back with a coffee and some snacks. So let's see where we are. Just flying over the channel, heading down to France. So we're going to fly over Bretagne. Bretagne, is that how you pronounce it? And then out over the Bay of Biscay. Flying over the Bay of Biscay takes me back to when I was a kid, because we always used to go to Spain and the Canary Islands on holiday. I don't think we went to Greece until I was quite a lot older. Weather's good. So one thing that's on my mind at the moment is I do want to be landing on runway 10 at Faro, but our flight plan is giving us an arrival that doesn't land on runway 10. So let me just have a quick look. So if I do .wx L Portugal Faro, that's how I remember it. So the wind is 090, 13 knots. It's definitely favouring runway 10. So let's sort out that part of our flight plan. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to open up a website which I'm going to log into, so just bear with me one moment. So if you go to chartfox.org, let me bring that up for you. Chartfox, there we go. So Chartfox is a free source of aeronautical charts for flight simulation. Just off the top of my head, you know. So what you can do is you can go into Get Started, you can type in an airport code or name, so LPFR, Faro Airport, and it will give you, let me just make sure that you're getting the full benefit of this. There we go. It's hard to be a director, pilot, presenter, aviation wannabe expert. So, STAR is the standard terminal arrival route. We want to land on runway 10. So let's just see what our options are here. Let me zoom in a bit on here. So this starts at Sotex, which is up here, and then yeah, this is really what we want. We want a Sotex arrival. So let's do that. If I go back to our sim brief, very difficult to know at what point we'll be going from the right to the left. I think it's going to be around about, oh actually it's got TOD, top of descent is there, so it's probably going to be Alagu and then Sotex. So let's pop that into our plan. Can I update my flight plan? Let's have a look. Curtis, Yankee 105 Genro. Bear with me 1 second just while I try and find where I need to be. So another really useful tool that I use is something called skyvector.com. Let's bring that one up. Skyvector.com. If we go to World High at the top right, you then get all of the airways and waypoints around the world. So we're going to be flying down here. There's a Lagu there, so that's on Upper Zulu 222, is that right? Nope, Yankee 105. Oh no, so we've got direct to Alagu. Whoops, didn't mean to change that. And then Irtis to Genro. So that's just a direct. So a Bupi to Alagu. So we've got Alagu there. Where is Bupi? We can just search for it. So we can go at the top here. ABUPU. Go. Abupi. What was it? Abupi? There it is. So we're pretty much going straight from there all the way down to here. So what we could do instead is where was Abupi again? Abupi is there. So we could do Abupi Upper November 872 to Viz. Upper November 872. Abupi Upper November 872 to Viz. And then from Viz, Abito, and then Sotex is there. Could we just do a direct? Do Viz, Sotex, join the arrival. Let's do that. So, Viz, direct Sotex, and then all sign in use, be sure you're in the ground. Okay, that's fine, so we can't change that. But at least we know what we need to do in our flight plan. Right now we're on control, so if a air traffic controller comes online, we'll just have to give them an update and let them know what our change of plan is. So back to the aircraft. If we go to legs, so there's a Bupi, there's Alagu, so we're going to get rid of, we're going to hit delete, get rid of Alagu, get rid of Irtis, get rid of Genro. I don't think I actually need to do that. So from a Bupi, we're going to go, let's just do a direct to Viz, and then we'll do a direct to Sotex, and that should give us our entry point, at which point we'll join the arrival. So into departures and arrivals, into Faro, we want to do the ILS Z. Is there a... Yeah, we'll do the ILS Z, just because it's more fun. We're going to do this Sotex. What's the difference? Sotex 5 kilo, possibly? If we go to the plan screen, and then we just step through the flight plan. Sotex, zoom in a little bit. Sotex down to Usulu, Venolo, and then, yeah, that looks pretty good. So we'll do that one, hit execute down here. And then if I just zoom out, here you can see we're joining Sotex from the north to the south to Foxtrot Romeo 630, Usalu, and then we'll just join the extended centre line for runway 10 there. And then we'll land. Marvellous. So feel a bit more comfortable now that we've got our full proper routing in place. Just zoom out a bit. Ooh, we've got a little bit of traffic nearby. So within 40 miles, we've got some traffic off to the left. You can just see the trail there. 2 trails. So we've got a Chanex, which is Jet 2, 2 Papa Charlie. Is that another one? Or is that just some clouds? Maybe the contrail from the Chanex. Oh, if you look down here, we've got the headrest, which I've magically gone inside of, and then we've got the south coast of Britain. It should be satellite imagery as well. Looks better zoomed out. I will be honest about that. That looks nice though. You see the roads and the field and the beach. Some kind of harbour. Very, very nice. I think for my next flight I'm going to do a visual flight. So I'm going to do something in a Cessna. And I'm just going to potter around and have a look at the scenery. Because to be honest with you, as much fun as it is to operate something so technically complex as a 737, it's a bit boring when it comes to the flying side of it. So, as I mentioned before, we've now got a master caution for fuel. If we look down at the fuel gauge for the centre fuel tank, it's got 10 pounds of fuel in. That's probably not going to be consumed because it's just not in reach of the fuel pumps. So what we can do now is turn off the centre fuel pumps. So as you can see, it's got low pressure. Turn those off and the fuel warning should disappear. And that centre fuel tank is now switched off. So we're now consuming the fuel from the wings. It looks like at the moment the left engine is using a bit more fuel than the right, and that's normal and realistic. You will expect to see on real aircraft, just due to the age and the wear and tear on the individual engines, they will have slightly different fuel burn rates. Now this is actually looking like they're in sync, so it looks like there's no asymmetrical fuel burn modelled here. And you may be thinking, well, why have we got less fuel on the left than in the right? That's because we had the APU switched on the ground, and the APU takes its fuel from the left wing tank. So that's why. Now you can rebalance them, which I did try in the Airbus last time. It went disastrously wrong, so I'm probably not going to try it today. I would actually like to get to my destination today. But you can switch on the crossfeed, can't you? Yep, so you can do the crossfeed on, and then I could switch off the left. Switch one off. You should start to see an increase. You should start to see fuel coming from the right engine, and from the right fuel tank to the left engine. Get them nice and balanced. Balanced, so we'll get that back on, turn off the crossfeed valve, and then we've got balanced fuel in each. There we go. So for a period of time there, just to explain what I was doing, I was creating a crossfeed, so I was creating a linkage between these two fuel tanks, and I'd switched off one of the fuel pumps for engine number 1, the left engine. So for a period of time, fuel was coming from the right wing through the crossfeed plumbing, the pipes basically, and into the left engine, and the left fuel tank had less fuel coming from it because I turned off one of the pumps there, so that's allowed us to get our fuel tanks back into sync. Now you will notice the EGT is slightly different, which is fine. Again, different wear and tear. So it looks like that they are modelling some differences between the engines here. Total air temperature has decreased by 1 degree Celsius. How do you see the outside air temperature on the Boeing? Oh. Fuel temperature is decreasing though, so it was around 0 last time we looked. It is decreasing. Can quickly talk about the pressurization system. So current cabin altitude is around about 7,000 feet. Obviously, the outside air pressure, the outside altitude is 35,000 feet. So there's a differential in pressure. So you've got 8 times more pressure inside than you do outside. That's all good. Cabin altitude. So this is the vertical speed indicator for the cabin pressure. You can see it's just increasing slightly. The differential is going up a little bit as well. So as long as you stay at 5,000 feet, which is what we currently are, the automatic system will maintain a good pressure differential. Now if we were to go to 38,000 feet, so if we said our cruise altitude is going to change to 38,000 feet, you can see the cabin is now descending, which means that more air is being pumped into the cabin and the differential pressure should reduce or increase. Increase, that's right. So it should increase so that by the time we get to 38,000 feet, we still have some room to climb the cabin from a pressurization point of view. See, now it's going to correct itself. It's going to reduce the difference between the internal and external pressure. And then once that gets back to a pressure it's happy with, so the valves, the outflow valves, are currently being managed by the pressurization system. That should start to go back to 0 once it gets back to the pressure that it was happy with before. So you can see that's reducing now. And then once it's reset the pressure to what it's happy with, it will, the cabin should then steady out again. The cabin climb. Just going to pull up XPilot just to make sure nobody's trying to chat to us. So that differential's now going down. Should start to see the cabin climb reduce to 0 shortly. There we go. It's going down now, which means that the outflow valves will be opening slightly and allowing air to flow out of the cabin. Okay, let's just have a quick look around us, make sure there's no traffic. We still have something over here. Is that the Chinook to Papa Charlie? Yep. They may be following us down to Spain. Let's just make sure that 35,000 feet is the right altitude for us to be at. So we're going to the cruise page. The optimal is now 39,000. So what we can do is we can climb up to 39,000 feet at this point. Let's do a step climb to 37 first. So we'll do 370. Set that into there, execute. Check altitude target, which means that we haven't changed the altitude in the window here, but that's by design because we need to change the pressurization setting. Again, you'll see the altitude VSI changing, and now we can tell the aircraft that it's safe to climb to 37,000 feet. So if we go to level change, we'll start to see the fuel flows increasing. The N1 speed has increased. Exhaust gas temperature's gone right up. Vertical speed is now increasing. Nose is up, and we're going to try and maintain. Actually, no, let's give it a helping hand. Allow it to lower the nose a little bit. Sorry, raise the nose a little bit with less speed constraint. So we'll be able to climb a bit faster. Doing a 3,000 feet per minute climb rate at 36,000 feet. That's pretty good performance. Now normally this would be controlled airspace, you'd have to ask for permission to climb, but because we're uncontrolled, we can do this. Now because that performance was actually pretty impressive, I'm confident that we can go straight to 390. Again, just make sure that the pressure configuration has changed as well, and then we'll go to 39 here. Do another level change. Same will happen again. Fuel flow will increase. N2 high pressure turbine speed will increase. Exhaust gas temperature is increasing. N1 is pretty much maxed out at the N1 limit. And then you can see we're climbing again at 2,000 feet per minute. That is extremely good. What's happening to our cabin altitude? So cabin altitude is descending, which means the pressure is reducing, and you can now see, because we're getting close to the ceiling of the aircraft, we're a bit closer to this orange bar within the differential pressure. We're reaching the limits of the acceptable differential pressure between the inside and the outside of the aircraft. The design pressure, design differential pressure. Very, very tempted to play around with some failures right now, but we know what happened last time. So we're now in altitude acquisition mode. It's basically just getting us to the altitude that we've requested, and when we get there we'll get to altitude hold, and then this will go to VNAV path once it's happy with that altitude, once it's happy with that vertical mode. Altitude hold, that looks close enough. Are we going to get VNAV path? If I go to VNAV on here, that would help, wouldn't it? So now we've got VNAV path, and we've got the speed is controlled entirely by the flight management computer. So managed speed, managed vertical mode, managed lateral mode. So the aircraft is now guiding us in all 3 dimensions, all 4 dimensions. And I can clear that check target altitude because I've changed the target altitude in the window. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, 4 dimensions. So we've got lateral nav, so that will guide the aircraft in roll and yaw effectively. So, you know, left and right across the Earth's surface. VNav will effectively control pitch. You know, we kind of use speed for pitch, or speed for altitude changes, and pitch for speed. But fundamentally, that's going to control the vertical route across the Earth. And I said 4 dimensions, because I guess it's 3. Speed as well. So the speed, the velocity over the Earth as well. So up, down, left, right. Desperate to say here. Select start, but I won't. Oh, we've got a centre online. Is that Russia? Sergei Bogdanov. Minsk, Moscow, Samara. Nowhere near there. So, we're good. Okay. I'm gonna have a sip of coffee. I'll be back in a minute. Let's take a quick look back at our arrival into Faro. So just a quick reminder, this is chartfox.org. Free flight charts for flight sim nerds like myself. Is there a way of closing the dock? No. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. 1 second, let me log back in. Okay, let me just quickly remind myself which arrival did we choose? 5 kilo. That's this one. I wish there was a way of getting rid of that dock though. Let's zoom in. So we're going to start at Sotex up here. We're going to fly on a heading of, or fly on a track of 185 degrees. Down to Usalu at that point there. Is there an altitude? Yes. So we've got an altitude here. A ceiling of, no, must not be above flight level 80, 8,000 feet, or below flight level 50, 5,000 feet. And then when we get down to here, we've got Victor Foxtrot Alpha. So that's Victor Foxtrot Alpha is on the airport itself, so that's D14, 14 miles away, using the DME, distance measuring equipment. And then we should be at the initial fix, which is 9 miles away from VFA, somewhere between 2,000 and 2,700 feet. Distance to go at that point will be 8.5 miles. Final approach fix is 7 miles out at 2,000 feet. And then, so, VOR DME 112.8, we'll get that tuned in. What's the final, what's the final course? So the radial is 286, that's 16 degrees more than west, so 16 degrees more than east will be 106. Alright. So we want 106 on our course, 106, and we want 112.8. So on our course is 106, and we want 112.8. There. And obviously that won't be tuned. Will it? No. 264 miles from something that uses that frequency, but I don't. We must be a lot more than 264 miles away from Faro at this point. We're still over the Bay of Biscay, aren't we? Nothing but water and fishermen. And an aircraft carrier. Slightly ahead now of that Chanex 2 Papa Charlie, probably because I changed the speed settings. So if we were to land now, we have an option. We have different options of landing flaps. So if we were to land with 15 degrees of flaps, so less drag, we would have to land at the approach speed. The VREF that we would approach at would be 158 knots, which is quite high, quite fast. But by going all the way to 40 degrees flaps, we can slow down quite a lot. It gives us a bit more time to maneuver, and we would actually be able to approach 20 knots slower. And what we'll do is, as we get closer, is we will probably click on the right side key here, and then that number, the flap number and the speed, will go to what's called the scratch pad down here, and then we can just move it into the flap speed here, and that will then, I think that will show up on the speed settings here as a VREF thing. Now interestingly, this is saying the ILS is different. Is that because I've chosen the wrong approach? It's an RNAV. Ah, it's the RNAV. Is there a... Where's the ILS approach? Runway 10. Does it just not exist? Okay, what we'll do is we will trust the data that is in the simulator, because that's going to be what we're actually flying on. So we want to be tuned into the ILS for runway 10, which is 110.5. 110.5. Just because I'm nosy, I'm going to leave the VFA VOR on standby in case we need that. And the final course is going to be 101, so we'll just reduce that to 101. And then as we get close to the runway, we'll activate the approach mode here, and that will then allow us to intercept the localizer and the glide slope. But I'll talk more about that as we get closer to the ground. Bay of Biscay, can we see any land at all in the distance? Not a jot. Any traffic around these parts? Something off to the left, 2,000 feet below, but about 80 miles away. Something over there. Oh, I think I saw it. Lost it. There it is. No idea. I think we're turning. We're turning. We'll go into map mode. There they are. So it's Chanex 673, and then behind that we've got a KLM 74 Lima. So if I zoom out, you can just see one of them for now. Should see the other one show up shortly. And now we're going from France's Brest area control, BREST, into Madrid air traffic control. And we're just heading down to Asturias here. Still quite far away. Making good progress, almost down to the north of Spain. And then we'll cross over into Portugal. Can we see any coastline up ahead yet? Don't think so. So how far have we got to our top of descent? Does that show us on here? Go to the progress page. Top of descent, 369 miles, so we'll get there at 11:26 Zulu. So we've got about 46 minutes before top of descent. And then as we're going through the descent, I'll talk to you about the ILS and how we're going to be using that. But it's all looking good. These buttons work. I would like a coffee, please. Oh, coffee's a good idea. Back in a moment. So there is the coast of the north of Spain, with some mountains in the distance, or hills at least in the distance. Hoping that we'll get some slightly better views the closer we get. Looks like some kind of harbour or port town just down there. Maybe that's Asturias. Let's pull the map up. Says Asturias straight ahead. Yep, that looks like a port town to me. Helicopter there, helicopter pad if you want to try landing there. And then we've got Asturias Airport there. Doesn't really look appropriate for us. I think if we were going to need to divert now, we would either go to well, Bilbao is just along the north coast. Don't know how far away that is. Let's have a look. In fact, so if we were going to do some diversions at this point, I would jump into the fixed screen. I would do LE. Is it LEBO for Bilbao? No. It's not LEBL, because that's Barcelona. Leba? Is that it? 365 miles. I mean, that's not it. That's not it, is it? That's pretty much our distance down to Faro from here. The other option that we have, of course, is our actual alternate, which is Lisbon, Porto, I guess. Is that right? And then, so that's 300 miles away. What's Bilbao? That's annoying me. It's LE, so that's Spain. LE. BB? Yes, that looks more like it. So we are due west and it's 140 miles. So I think Bilbao would probably be my... You can see it there on the map. That would be my diversion point here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a ring around that. I like it, so I'm putting a ring on it. There we go. So 150 miles from there is that fix. If I do LEMD, which is Madrid, how far away is that? 223. I don't think Madrid's going to be a good alternate for us today. Let's put LPPT. That's 300. Let's do 2 rings of 250. Let's just see where they intersect. What am I doing? That's 250 from there, so if we bring that down, it'll be clear in a moment why I'm doing this. I want to try and find the equidistant point from both from Bilbao and what am I doing? Previous page /200. So that's going to give us the equidistant point. So between now and Abupi, if we need to divert before Abupi, we'll go to Bilbao. If we need to divert after Abupi, we'll divert to Lisbon. So you can see Lisbon's at the top of the screen there. Bilbao is here. And in reality, because it takes time to turn and and that sort of thing, we'll only divert to Bilbao if we need to do a diversion in the next, so what's that, that's 80 miles. If we need a diversion in the next 80 miles, we'll go to Bilbao. Otherwise it's going to be to Lisbon. But I can't see that happening, mostly because this is a simulator. Look at those mountains, and I haven't got any failures turned on, so I'm going to hop outside. It may get a little bit louder. Quite impressive. See it just riding the air, which is why if you sit in the back of the aircraft, because that's where the because you're furthest away from the wings, basically. Over here you're much further away from the wings than you are at the front. Is that true? Yeah, so the centre of lift is sort of in the middle here. That's going to be the pivot point. It's about even. If you are sat at the back, you do tend to go up and down. You feel that pitch a lot more than you do in the middle, because you're just rotating, just your directions going up and down here, but here you're being lifted and pushed down quite a lot. It's like if you were sat on the end of the wing here, any roll, you can see the rolling, would be much more pronounced, whereas if you sat in these seats in the middle here, you don't quite feel the roll as much. But yeah, look at that. Let's reduce the noise a little bit for us. Spain, everyone. So you can see we are getting closer and closer to our equidistant point. I've still got to Bilbao from here because we can make that turn and head back to Bilbao faster than we can get to the equidistant point. Still nothing on VATSIM, no controllers at the moment. Great if we could get some air traffic control at Faro. So our next waypoint is Boopy. Let's just have a quick look and see what our fuel should be at Boopy. So at a Boopy we should be looking at around about 11.7 tons, around about 12 tons when we get to a Boopy. And at this point we'll have burnt 13 tons, most of which will be burned during the climb. So it doesn't, even if we've burnt 12 tons and we've got 12 tons left, for example, doesn't mean we're at the halfway point. It just means that we've climbed up to cruise altitude. So you'll always have a higher burn rate earlier on in the flight than you do later. In this instance as well, I think we are well over halfway in our flight today. So it was 1120 miles, I think, in total. I'm going to replace our Bilbao fix with Faro. And so we've got 148 miles before we get within 200 miles of Faro. So we've got 300 miles to go. It was an 1100 mile flight. So we are almost in the last quarter of the flight now. Short haul ops are pretty cool. I think trying to make conversation for 9 hours over the Atlantic or something would be excruciating. Sorry, I left the sim brief thing up. So what I've done is I've put LPFR, which is Faro, into the fixed screen. You can see distance to go to the edge of that fix, so that 200 mile ring is 141. How's that? So 340 is greater than that. Because we're not. I guess because we're not going to hit perpendicular to the 200 ring. Okay, that makes sense. Just talking out loud, thinking out loud. So glide slope 101. You can set a wind correction factor as well, so you can give yourself a bit more. If you've got gusty winds where you're landing, you can increase your speed a little bit. So I could do a 8. Don't want a 58 knot correction. I could do an 8 knot correction. So that's 138. Is that going to change? I don't know how that shows up, to be honest. Let's find out. What I will also do, because we seem to have slipped back into this Econ cruise mode, let's put that back to decimal 8. Fuel at Faro will be 9. Like I say, I don't think we're going to necessarily need all the fuel that we've brought for the diversion if we need to divert. Let's just quickly show what that additional fuel is that's required for the diversion. To the first page. Yep. So this is our fuel plan. So we only need 16 tons to get to Faro. We've brought 25 tons. 15-minute contingency is 1.5 tons. It's going to take us just under 4 tons to get to Lisbon from Faro. And then we've got final reserve, which we don't want to touch, which is like absolute dire emergency fuel. You never want to get down to that. So minimum takeoff fuel is 24.5. Haven't brought any extra. assumed 500 kilos of fuel was used. Sorry, 500 imperial pounds of fuel was used during the taxi. Probably should have been a little bit higher, but it's quite a long taxi out. Trip plus taxi 17.4. Final reserve plus alternate 6 tons. So as long as we land, sorry, as long as we get to Faro with more than 6 tons of fuel, we're legal. So we can hang around for a bit, 15 minutes contingency, and we can then fly to Lisbon, and then we can even execute a go-around if we absolutely had to. So we've got some reserve fuel as well if things go completely crazy at Lisbon and it takes us a couple of attempts to land. We're all good. So, does it give us estimated fuel? I think at Faro it's estimating 7.5, so we're well ahead of our fuel plan at the moment. All good. Looks like there's a fairly major road there. It's really pixelated. I think the way that AutoAuthor works is it'll give you satellite imagery that's appropriate for the level that you're flying at. So if you're flying in a Cessna low down, it'll give you more detailed satellite imagery. And if you're high up, like we are here, it'll give you good enough satellite imagery so it looks realistic from above, but if you zoom in you're going to get some pixels. Okay, so you can see here we've got the 200-mile range ring from Faro, and we've got the 200-mile range ring from Lisbon. That's not really helpful, so see if we can find a good equidistant point between the two. So from Faro there's 100 miles. We're going to be... Is that really how close they are? Practically at Lisbon. It seems... Doesn't seem far enough, does it? But Portugal was bigger than that. Is that true? Is Lisbon... Lisbon must be more than 100 miles away from Faro. Might have to do that flight sometime. So we've got some traffic just popped up. 2,000 feet above us and somewhere behind us. Interesting effects on those distant clouds. I hope we're rolling. There we go. So the 100-mile range, 100-mile is generally how long it takes. 100 miles, how long it takes you to get from cruise down to ground level. So basically between here and, well, from here for the next 100 miles. Not even that, really. What I'm thinking is, if we're beyond that 100-mile range ring, that 100-mile fix point from Lisbon, 100 miles from Lisbon here, if we started to descend there, that would be perfect. We'd get straight into Lisbon with minimal fuss and just minimal wasted time. But after that, even if we started to descend here, I suppose Lisbon would still technically be the fastest point. But once we get to Lisbon, ironically, we would descend straight into Faro at that point. I can't believe those two are so close to each other. I'm going to have to do that flight in a Cessna, I think. Faro to Lisbon. Is it Lisbon or is it Porto? LPPT just sounds like Porto to me. So what we can do is jump back into our Sky Vector. So we've got Faro down here, and if we go up here, Lisboa, Humberto Delgado, LPPT. Yep. Wow. That's really not very far at all, is it? Crazy. So yeah, let's do that next time. I think next time we'll take off from Faro in a Cessna. We're going to go west along the coast to Sagres, named after the beer. Or maybe the other way around, nobody knows. Then we're going to head north up the coast to Arabida. Might have a fly around here, and then we're going to go into Lisbon around there. That sounds like a fun flight to me. If I go to World VFR, so if we took off from Faro, fly along the Algarve coast here, Portimao is where the Formula 1 race happens in Portugal. There's a nice little runway in Portimao there. We'll even do like a quick touch and go. Head out to this little cape down here. Head north along here. You may be wondering what these numbers are. So 2, big 2, little 9, big 3, little 9. That is the minimum safe altitude for flying through these areas. So if you fly at 3,900 feet, you will be 1,000 foot above the highest piece of terrain in that area. So 2,200 feet there. Now as you get more towards the coast, it generally gets lower and lower. Now this is a complex bit of airspace, so this is something that we'll have to contend with. So you can see you've got airspaces around large airports are like upside down wedding cakes. So you know how the layers of wedding cakes, you've got like a big round lower bit, you've got a slightly smaller round bit on top of that, and then you've got like a even smaller bit on top of that. Flip that upside down. So right next to the airport, you can see this circle here. That is the smallest piece of cake, but it's upside down. So the small bit is next to the ground. It's basically resting on the ground. So you can see here from 2,000 feet down to the surface, SFC, you've got this bit of controlled airspace here. It looks like it's split as well. So you've got some kind of split between different quadrants of that. So different airspaces here. So you've got, interestingly, you've got an indication here for both surface to 2,000 feet, but you've also got, what's that pointing towards? Nothing. It's strange to have two different guidances on with different limits, but there we are. So the controlled airspace here is between 2,000 feet and the surface. I guess it should really cover all of this, because this is the that smallest layer of the cake. It's basically serving this airport here. That's the ATZ, basically, the aerodrome traffic zone. And then above that, you've got a larger circle, which is also split into different sections, because you've got other airports here. You've got lots of different airports that are overlapping. You've got air space that needs to be controlled. So this circle here, for example, you've got control from from the 3,000 feet down to the surface. But then that interacts with Lisbon's airspace here as well. So this is very complex airspace. And as a pilot of a small aircraft, you still need to visualize all these in 3 dimensions before you get anywhere near them. So if we're going to be coming up the coast here, the first thing we're going to hit is potentially this. So if we come in higher than 5,500 feet, we are going to be subject to this controlled airspace here. But if we come in at 5,000 feet, we can completely ignore it. So visualize an upside down wedding cake. We're going to fly under that big, the largest layer of cake, and then we're going to get to this circle here, the next layer of cake here. So this one's from 1,000 feet to 5,500. So if we're flying in at 5,000 feet, as long as we're flying between 5,500 and 1,000 feet, we're going to need to contact air traffic control and request entry into that airspace. And then as we come up here, so it looks like there's some controlled airspace here. We'll probably just go straight up here and try and intercept the arrival there, the approach there. This is very complicated. Yeah, proper VFR charts do a better job than this of telling you where things are. So we'll probably come through here, try and skirt those 2, and then land at Lisbon. I think that would be a lot of fun. Let's close that down. Let's see where we are. So coming up to 100 miles away from Lisbon, just about at the VIS VOR. You can see the VOR1 is not tuned, so that's actually going to be the instrument landing system for Faro. But if I do, what was it, 112.8, if I stick that into VOR2, 112.8, turn that on. So there is a VOR. Look at that. Look at that. Gorgeous. There is a VOR on the airfield at Faro. Although this seems to have tuned in something called BAN. Is that the right let's go to charts. 112.8 is definitely Faro's VOR. So what we should do shortly is PME is that increasing or decreasing? 217, 216. So we're getting closer to BAN, but also using the same frequency is the VOR at Faro. That's really interesting. Very, very interesting. Don't think you're supposed to. I mean, I don't think would you even see a VOR from 200 miles away? I'm not sure. Don't think you would. Probably could. Probably would. Who knows? Okay, I'm gonna have a quick snack while you enjoy the view. Thought there was some lakes or something over there. It's just clouds in the valleys. A lot of clouds coming in from the Atlantic Ocean. The shadows on the ground. It's quite cool. So those clouds are real clouds. I don't mean what we're looking at as real clouds, but if you go to map and you open up Nextrad, is it Nextrad? Clouds. So what you're seeing here is actually cloud, I believe, cloud from radar, satellite imagery, which is then being injected into the simulator. I'm sure you used to be able to do Nextrad plus clouds. But yeah, my understanding is these are real clouds that are visible on a satellite image right now. So these are out there right now. That's pretty cool. Some interesting greenery down there. So let's have a look, see where we are. So we've now crossed the 100-mile ring from Lisbon. We're gonna fly past Lisbon, head out to the west of Faro Airport, turn in to the left, and then land on runway 10. Hopefully we're going to do it in one go. But I'm very, very out of practice flying the 737. What I generally do is I come in too fast, and then as we get closer to the ground I find that the control authority is really poor. Just getting my excuses in early. Okay, I'll be back in one moment. If that sounded like somebody urgently running to the door for an Amazon delivery, trust your gut. So now you can see we've got VFA, which is the VOR at Faro, is now tuned in. And we can use that on VOR too. So we've got the ILS course of 101. If we also tune in 106 into there, that will also give us the an extra visual indication that we need for landing at the airport. Now we're not going to be following that course. We're going to be following 101 because we're going to engage the approach path. Reaching the clouds, and it looks like this is a weather front. Normally what happens when you pass from warmer air into cooler air, you see the air condenses. Will we see a difference in the total air temperature? Possibly not. Don't know if you noticed, but the aircraft just got a little bit unstable, just a little bit of roll as it crossed that front. You can see there, it's just getting knocked around just a little bit. Just as we're still traversing the boundary between the cold and the warmer fronts. Okay, so how far have we got to our top of descent? Go to progress. Top of descent is in 40 miles. Okay, so we've got we'll do 1 mile every 7 seconds, 4 sevens are 28. We've got 280 seconds, so it's got about 5 minutes before we get there. Which sounds like a good opportunity for a drink, a snack. Probably a quick bathroom break before we do the full descent into Faro. So I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, so now 100 miles away. I've missed the top of descent. I got chatting with the flight attendants. So we're going to bring the altitude, cleared altitude down to 3,000 feet. Turn off VNAV and then re-engage VNAV, and then that should start our descent. Now what you will see, because I missed the start of the top of descent, we are 3,300 feet above where we should be. So we're now descending at 2,000 feet, and you can see we're going to hit 3,000 feet, miles and miles and miles away. I don't know why it's doing that. So we did have some constraints. So SOTEX between flight level 190 and flight level 300. So that's the ceiling and the floor. So that's in 6 miles, so we really should be descending fairly fast. 2,000, 3,000 feet per minute. Now zoom in a little bit here. So from this point onwards, we're committed to landing in Faro, not Lisbon. At least that's where our first attempt is going to be. Have we got a discontinuity there? There's a missing. No, I'm just about to see it. Let's just quickly look at our legs. Look at our legs. No, it's all good. This runway 1075, so 2,000 feet or above, 3,000 feet. So our hold, if we miss the approach, we'll be holding at Gimal at 3,000 feet. So our missed approach altitude will be 3,000. Really need to be trying to catch up. Just because we are behind, so we need some extra track miles at this point. So if I turn to 210, so I can turn a heading to 210, go to heading select, and then if I set the vertical speed at 3,200 feet per minute, keep the speed high, that means that we're going to be able to descend fast, but still too high for the profile. I'm going to have to descend even faster than that. What we can do is just bring out the speed brakes, which I've now mapped to an analog axis, so I can control it much better. In fact, that's giving us good speed. So if I let the aircraft MCP speed, control wheel steer, that's not what we want. We want heading select, control wheel steer P. Why is that gone like that? Let's just re-engage the autopilot. Probably me pressing something I shouldn't have done. So what I'm doing now is I'm watching to make sure that we are catching this up, and then at some point we're going to have to steer back onto course. So we're 3,000 feet above, but it's correcting itself. We are speeding up. I'm going to go full speed brake here. Just going to double check that I can hear the traffic speaker device. Keep forgetting you can't see that, but that's fine. very brown. Not a lot of rain in these parts. (2,500 feet above the standard instrument, the standard terminal arrival route. So we've got full speed brakes on the wings. Can we see those from here? No. Can you see the little TUI smile? I have my strobes on. Couldn't see my strobes flashing there. Yep, they're on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go legs, direct to there, and then I'm going to enable LNAV and VNAV. And that means that we're going to have to come back onto this route. So we've given ourselves a... Oh, now we're below. So let's bring in the speed brakes. Speed brakes are up. So the power's coming back. So we've managed to intercept this quite nicely now. Just a couple of 100 feet below where we should be. So we're now steering back onto here, and you can see the aircraft will keep us on that vertical navigation path now, the VNAV path. FMC speed, so the flight management computer is back in control of the speed. I think we should do a radio call. What's that? 630. Vero traffic. Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf on the Sotex 5 kilo arrival. Overhead Foxtrot Romeo 630. Descending through flight level 130. Vero. That was not good. Right, where are my rudder pedals? So I think what I'm going to do at this point, which may be disastrous, and you know my track record with disasters on these streams, I'm going to disengage the autopilot. I'm going to disengage the auto throttle. And I'm going to try and fly this manually. So idle throttle. This doesn't pop out, does it? Ugh. So we'll try and keep it in the oops, a bit too aggressive. Try and keep it in the pink cross. Quite a null zone on this, which I don't like. It's like an area where it doesn't respond and then suddenly it jumps, but I need to try and fix that. So we'll turn back onto course. Just see the Algarve coast ahead. Let's get this. Whoa. Flying it a bit like a jet fighter right now, which I shouldn't be doing. There's a very, very large space in the middle where it doesn't really respond. I don't like it. And then it just jumps. Let me just see if I can very, very quickly sort that out before VATSIM gets annoyed at me. So we've got roll. Hit a response curve. pitch. I just need to be a bit more careful. Okay, so we'll just try and keep it in the pink cross. Excuse me. Keep it coming down. So we're at idle thrust, and we're approaching our desired speed. So I'm just going to apply a little bit more throttle at this point. So we are below 10,000 feet. Let's get some lights on. Let's get the seatbelt signs back on. Logo signs on.
Okay, the cabin is secured. Have a good flight.
Cabin is secured. And then let's just try and keep descending. So if I'm flying, you ain't getting RNP levels, RNAV levels of navigation performance. So the main reason I'm flying now is because I want to try and get a feel for the aircraft before I have to land the thing. What I might do is just give myself one less thing to worry about. Let the aircraft control its own speed. Pulling back quite far and there's nothing happening. Just going to pull out the speed brakes just a touch to help reduce that speed a bit. Trade a little bit of that altitude for speed now that we're above the, or below the profile. So now if we go into approach mode, that will arm. You can see on the FMAs, which is this bit here at the top of the screen. You've got speed is armed. You've got LNAV currently active, but VOR localizer is armed, ready to guide us down. So we are a bit high and we're a bit fast, so let's just pull the speed brakes out just a little bit.
1,000 to go.
So now we can trade some of that. The aircraft's now on FMC speed. Turning towards the airport now. Putting the speed brakes in. Hopefully we'll start to see those engines coming back in. So VOR localizer is active. So you can see along the bottom of the primary flight display you've got a little purple diamond sliding from right to left. That is our localizer. So we're going to try and maintain 2,000 feet.
5 traffic, walk on the way, running pushback.
Faro traffic. Tomjet 4 Romeo Golf, final runway 10, Faro. So, try and maintain 3,000 feet, which I'm doing a really bad job of. The okay, so the auto throttle is coming in now. So we're above the no, I don't like it. I'm going to turn off the auto throttle because we're above the ILS now. So I'm just going to try and manually fly it. Wait for the radio altimeter. Once we get to 1,000 feet, 2,500. See the runway ahead. Well above the glide path, glide slope. Too fast, so speed brakes. I just got an email.
Traffic, walk to runway, starting taxi via Charlie 2, Papa, to holding point of runway 10.
So we're really fast. I'm going to try and lower the gear. Why isn't that working? So we've got full speed brakes. No, we don't. Aren't anywhere near the centre line.
Light slow.
Yeah,
Light
I'm
slow.
aware. I'm aware.
Light slow.
I know. So fast. So fast.
300.
Very, 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 very high.
200. Sync rate. Sync rate. 100.
Not now, Kato.
50. 40. 30. 20.
Whoa. This is what I mean.
10.
That was not good. That was not good. Ugh. Ugh. That was quite embarrassing. It's like, you know, that the PFD doesn't pop out. That would have made that a lot easier. But we're here, and the passengers don't know how close they came to absolute catastrophe. Bring the flaps in. On the left here. then I think we said we were going to try and get to stand 321, because that'll be easy to remember. So if I can just... Okay, don't know which one it is on there. Go in here though. Slow down a bit because we're getting a bit faster on the terminal area. I've missed it. 312 was over there. That's fine. We will just go. And we're here. 213. That's close enough, isn't it? Got the parking brake on. Get the ground power chocks, air start unit. We'll turn on ground power, and we can now turn off the engines. Whoop. Come on. Engines off. And turn off the seatbelt sign. And that's probably all we have time for today. A quick look at this gorgeous aircraft at Faro. Oh, I've left the lights on, it's fine. I get a nice shot of that. Then taking off in the background. And if I can turn off the labels. Looks like a Dreamliner taking off. We have to be this side, don't we? Beautiful. Well, here we are on Faro. Hope you enjoyed that. I did, apart from the landing, but I need to work on that. I'll see you soon.